I want an AI that works for me, based on my own need. I want my AI to be like a doctor. Doctors are pro-human, and AIs can be pro-human.
Hello and welcome to Lives Less Ordinary on the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Jo Fidgen. Thank you very much for joining us. Our guest today has changed your life. In fact, if you are under 35, you possibly couldn't even imagine what your life would have been like without him. In December 1990, Tim Berners-Lee, a British scientist, launched the World Wide Web, a way of sharing information instantly with absolutely anybody anywhere on the planet, as long as they had an internet connection. And these days, that's in the order of about 6 billion people. The extent to which our lives have moved online is breathtaking. We bank, we shop, we learn, we make friends, we make enemies, we organise at the click of a mouse, at the touch of a screen. None of this would have been possible without Sir Tim's vision. Bad things have happened on the web since then, things which were not in Sir Tim's plan. We've got the unprecedented spread of fake news, we've got targeting of vulnerable voters with misinformation. We've got corporations selling personal data for profit. And of course, now we have the rise of AI, also made possible by the web, and who knows where that is going to lead us. We are going to talk about all of these things, but mostly we're going to try to get inside the head and the heart of the web's inventor. So Tim Berners-Lee, thank you very much indeed for joining us. You made science fiction fact. So how come you're not a billionaire?
Well, it was really important that the web should be free for anybody to use, and it should be, and that would mean it has to be free of charge. So I couldn't charge people 2 cents a click, as well as ask them. I want people to put everything on the web. That was a big ask.
Right, and you had to persuade people that indeed this should not be for sale.
Yes, I had to persuade. Well, yes, I worked for an organisation called CERN in Switzerland, and CERN could have, in principle, they could have decided that anything going on in the web should be taxable in some way, but with royalties at CERN. But we got from them a commitment eventually. In 1993, we got from them a commitment that they wouldn't charge royalties.
Right, which is a remarkable gift that you have given to the world, actually. But interestingly enough as well, you haven't seemed to pursue fame any more than you pursued money. And I just want to mention a couple of names. Both men who were born in the same year as you, 1955, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, who also transformed our digital lives, household names. Do you wish that you were as famous as them?
No, I don't. Life must be really, being famous must be total pain.
Did you see what this could become? Did you think this is going to change the way we live?
Well, I wanted everything on the web, and I designed it to be universal. So it was there were lots of systems I've seen designed which weren't universal, which had some constraint about the document you made. You had to put it on a particular sort of computer or something. But the web had to be unconstrained. It had to be universal.
When you say you wanted everything on the web, you mean everything on the web?
I meant anything originally, but now we've got more or less everything.
Right, okay.
So when people say, "But what about the bad things?" Well, fraud is illegal on the web or off the web. So that in a way, the web didn't change that. So until I guess 2016, really, I felt that technology was neutral.
And then 2016.
And then 2016, the Trump elections and the Brexit election. And then people said, maybe the web had been used to manipulate people to vote for something that was not in their best interests. And maybe the web technology itself was polarizing. So in other words, whereas the web itself might be neutral, maybe Snapchat isn't, maybe TikTok isn't, maybe Instagram isn't.
How did that make you feel?
Big double take. So it made me concerned that we should perhaps limit the extent to which people make their websites addictive, for example.
Okay.
Technology isn't always neutral. There's a social side when you design a technology. When you design something like Snapchat or something which is addictive, then you deliberately make it addictive. When you design something like Pinterest, Pinterest is I haven't heard of people getting addicted to Pinterest, but in both cases, people use Instagram or they use Pinterest. One of them is designed to be addictive, the other one isn't. People spend a lot more time on Instagram because they get stuck on it. But they can use Pinterest to share photos as well.
So what makes something addictive?
It's very deliberately the way you connect the AI algorithm to the system. You train the AI, then you choose what it is you give rewards to. You choose whether you reward it for keeping somebody on the platform, even though that keeps them on the platform by making them angry.
Because that increases engagement.
Yeah. So it's the way that the algorithm has been trained to polarize people. Then that's not a neutral piece of technology. That's a piece of technology which is making the world a worse place.
There's growing evidence that there is some kind of link between the amount of time that people spend online, on particular platforms, and their mental health, and particularly with young people, we've seen this connection increasingly. All children now are going to grow up in this world, pretty much all children. I mean, your children were born at the moment the web was launched. How worried are you about the world that children are growing into?
I think it's really important to give to children devices which are limited. You use parental controls to give them a device which does not have addictive things in it. Give them WhatsApp chat so that they can call you and tell you when they're coming home. Give them Wikipedia so that they can do their school projects. But don't give them Snapchat. So I think we should build phones for kids, which one way or another block out the addictive things, because kids are not capable of avoiding the addictive things, and some grown-ups also have problems.
What advice do you have for individuals, not necessarily children, not necessarily parents, but any individual who is worried about their online experience, who's worried about the amount of time they're spending there or the kinds of negativity that they see there? What can we do?
I don't use TikTok. I survive without using TikTok. I stopped using Instagram. Instagram used to be something where I could find, and it changed. It used to be I could see what my friends and family were doing. And now if I go online, there's a feed, and that feed will get me addicted. So I've stopped using Instagram. There are lots of things out there which are not addictive. So it's just, you have to be strong and avoid it. I mean, even on YouTube, you have to be careful, because I know if I follow a link to this podcast, then the next thing I'll be doing is I'll be listening to watching all kinds of things on YouTube, which YouTube then suggests to me.
Do you advise people turn off now?
Wait till the end of it. Wait till the end. But then when you finish listening to this podcast, or if you use a podcast listener, the podcast world is basically great, because you can use your own podcast viewer. You don't have to go to the BBC Sound site. You can get this podcast as a podcast, and you can use it using an independent piece of software like Overcast, for example. Or you can use the Apple podcast app, or you can use a completely independent third-party app for listening to podcasts. When you do that, you're in control. There's no feed which is trying to get you hooked.
Talking of control, how do we stay in control of our personal data online? Because we know that it's being sold for profit, that you created the web to be for people, for everyone, as you say it. And it's become more like it's for corporations, and people are the products, and our data is monetized. What do we do about that?
What we do about that is we build a world in which has been building. In fact, that's why I started a company, Inrupt.
Inrupt,
INRUPT, Inrupt.com. We started a company so that we could build systems which were prohibitive human, where the user has got their data in a data wallet, and so where the system is called Solid. It's being promoted at the moment by and managed by the Open Data Institute in London, and so that's the ODI, and so that this is a movement which ODI is managing to build a world where people again have that thing we call digital sovereignty. Because digital sovereignty is that feeling that you are empowered by the network, that when you're connected, you have the same power as other people. In the early days of the web, you would make your own website, and you'd make your website. I'd make my website. I'd link to your website because I thought yours was a good one, and people following these links between the different blogs would have a great time. They'd find it was a very rich world. It was called the long tail. Long tail was when lots and lots of blogs, lots and lots of small and medium-sized people would be putting stuff on the web. And in a way, with this, the data wallets, the Solid data wallets, and technology that we're building is bringing people back a sense of personal empowerment, of sovereignty over their own data.
Putting people back at the heart.
Back in control. Putting it back the right way up. Putting the privacy thing, right, but the right way up.
You said pro-human, which is a great phrase. Do you think AI, because of course AI is taking off because of what's possible on the web, do you think AI is pro-human?
I think it depends very much on the AI. So you can make an AI which is pro-human, or you can make an AI which exploits people. Before ChatGPT, I wrote about I want an AI that works for me. So, because at the time we had Siri, which worked for Apple, we had Alexa that worked for Amazon. I said, I want an AI that works for me, so that if I ask it what I should do for a holiday, it will give advice based on my own needs. I want my AI to be like a doctor. It doesn't matter who pays the doctor, but the doctor works for me. The doctor's working for my best interests. So, if you like, doctors are pro-human, and AIs can be pro-human, but they can be. And so we're building that in the labs. We call it Charlie. And so in the labs at Interrupt, we've built an AI which works for you.
Okay. And how soon can we all expect to get Charlie in our lives?
It'll be a while. I hope there will be several different organisations and companies which provide AIs which work for you.
We did ask AI what we should ask you. Well, in fact, we asked AI what it would ask you as a creation which has come about because of your creation. As it said itself, you are its creator's creator. It came up with something very interesting. So as I say, this is AI being asked to talk to you, to ask you a question as an AI.
Yeah.
It said, when you built the web, you gave humanity a new nervous system. Now that I exist, an intelligence that grew out of that network, do you feel pride, fear, or something else entirely?
Good question. And the answer is all the above. So I feel pride of when I hear that AI is being used, based on information on the web. Somebody's built AI, when they've used AI to do something like figure out the folding of proteins or discover drugs for undruggable diseases, then I'm proud of it. I'm concerned when I think about people trying to build superintelligence which is smarter than them. Some people seem to be racing to do that. If we do that, it's really important that we build it in a way that's contained.
Right. And do you think, based on the experience of the last 35 years, do you think there will be serious efforts to contain AI, or do you think it will be let loose?
I can't tell what will happen.
Are you an optimist?
Basically, I'm an optimist because of all the people I work with, because of people I meet, and the spirit that they have, because of they're building a new world which is actually pro-human.
So the question from this AI was pride, fear, or something else entirely when you think about AI. You said all of the above. So what would be your something else entirely? What else do you feel about the
About
future of
AI.
AI?
I think there's something else entirely isn't fear, but it is that we have to be intelligent about the way we reframe the the jobs people have out there. Some of them will change a lot, and it's not clear how that will happen. I believe that we as a race will be good. We'll figure out how to do that. Um, uh, so that's there's something else entirely. I suppose situation where I think we have to be careful to make sure that people who have particular professions at the moment, if those professions are threatened by AI, that they're retrained to use AI instead of be replaced by it, and so on.
Maybe humans will end up having to change.
Humans will always have to change, and humans always have.
And your family is very important to you.
Very.
You're
Yes.
married to Rosemary. You have 5 children in your
Between us,
family,
yeah.
between you.
Mm.
Do they treat you as a public figure? Do they see you as a public figure?
Not at all. No. We've always had rules from when Alice and Ben were in school. We always had a rule: the school should never talk about the web, and should never talk about me and the web. And so that they're in primary school. All the teachers knew. There was one time when the headmistress came into Alice's class with a Time magazine. Said, "Hey, Alice, is your dad on the front of Time magazine?" And she said, "What?" She said, "Is this your dad?" "Yeah, that's my dad." What does he do at work?" "He talks to people." Meanwhile, the teacher was saying, "No, stop." No, the headmistress had forgotten and the rule, and so we had a rule that just my family would not talk about in school.
Right.
And now they're all big and old and wise. They're well past being phased by fame.
Yeah. So you don't like the limelight much?
No, not that much.
This will make you, I think, in the modern era, a very curious sort of person, somebody who has not gone after fame and money. And I would really like to understand where that's come from. And I suppose the obvious place to start with that is your parents. But a pretty extraordinary pair, by all
Yes.
accounts.
Mum and Dad. Yeah, Mum and Dad met building the very first computer in the UK, and so of course that was a huge thing. And they were part of a team at Ferranti, and so that group of people they were thinking about what is a computer anyway. What does it mean to be a computer? To have a computer? They were wondering about, could a computer be intelligent? What would that mean?
So these were discussions in your childhood home about what a computer could do.
Well, Dad made a little computer out of water jets, so that when 2 water jets went on at the same time, they would go into a particular pot and go on that through the system. So
He made this at home.
he made it at home. Yep.
Did you help him?
Yeah. Well, I admire the result. He did that because then you could see that computing was just logic. It's just if this comes on, then this comes on.
I know your parents were, of course, very logical, very rational people, given what they did. There's a fantastic story about your mum, Mary Lee, who was a real pioneer. But she, I think, was quite a devoted churchgoer, but she believed that all churches should have a notice on the door saying, "Take everything within metaphorically."
Yep. That's right.
So very rational people, but...
Very rational, but yes, Mum was quite devout, but also very scientific.
Mm-hmm. And very creative and very imaginative. And I think you're the first of 4 children. She paused her career when she had you. What was her motherly style? What was her approach to you?
Mostly letting us get on with it. Watchful negligence, she called it.
Watchful negligence.
So we were within walking distance of Fishman Park, so that was a wonderful playground. We made a go-kart out of an old pram, with old pram wheels at the back and pushchair wheels at the front. And then we'd push that around all over the park.
How would you describe yourself as a boy? Were you shy, excitable, outdoorsy? What were you like?
As a boy, I was introverted, so shy. So I went to an all-boys school, and also because it was an all-boys school, there was a train right away. A lot of the other people at the school lived away from me, so that growing up, I never had a girlfriend while I was in high school. I sort of never really went to dances and things, so I guess the energy went into mathematics and physics and electronics, so
Right.
building things, and that's things I did with my friend was building electronics.
Right. What was the focus of the family home?
Well, Mum was the driving force, I suppose. Mum organised everything. She has organised that we went camping, for example. Being in a tent on the ground, knowing that's all you've got. So we all knew that all we needed was a tent. And I think that's gives you a strong feeling of self-sufficiency for the rest of life.
That's interesting. So I wonder if that ties into what we touched on earlier, which is that you're not that interested in money and things. Do you think that comes from your parents?
Well, I was also remember the tradition when I invented the web when the internet had already been invented 20 years beforehand. So I was building on the shoulders of these giants who made the internet, so Vint Cerf and colleagues, and I was building on that, and all that was free. The internet was there to spread as an idea, but the really important thing was there should be only one internet. Later on, there should be only one web, and for do that, keeping it free was keeping it royalty free was important.
If the internet is the sort of infrastructure, if that's the way that computers talk to each other, how does the web then relate to the internet in the simplest terms?
So the web is everything. When you click on something, click on a link, that's the web. So when you click on something or you type in something that starts HTTP, that's the web. None of that clicking on one thing and going to another thing somewhere in the world. That didn't exist before I invented it.
Right. Let's talk about how you invented this. So you went to university, you read physics, you go and get various jobs in the computer field, largely. You go to CERN. You mentioned CERN. This is this very well-respected, very international scientific research centre in Switzerland. And this is where you dream up this idea of the World Wide Web. What was the problem that you were trying to fix?
The problem I was trying to fix was that people from CERN come from all over the world. And when they come from all over the world, they bring with them different sorts of computer and different sorts of computer system and different sorts of documentation system. So all those were incompatible systems. And so in practice, what you needed to do, if you wanted to find out about how did that module connect to another person's module, then you'd go and find that person. For example, you go and give them a coffee.
Right.
So the coffee space was really important. The coffee space was at the intersection of the different corridors. And so if you needed somebody else, you could wait till they walked by and pick them up. So in a way, but shouldn't the web be something which could, in a way, provide that functionality?
The world's coffee shop, basically.
The world's coffee shop.
I said that you dreamt up the World Wide Web, and I don't really know if that's what you did. When you see a problem, when you identify a problem and you're trying to think about a solution, do you code the solution primarily, or are you also having a vision? Is this also an act of imagination?
Both. When you code something up, supposing you're imagining an app, you imagine how the app would be, and you sit down with your computer, and you type, and you have in your mind's eye, you have what the app is going to look like, And that all turns into code. There's code for each box. When I designed the web, in fact, I had a drag and drop system that I could design the app with. So basically, when you're just writing an app by yourself, then you have the requirements in your head and the design in your head, and then you code.
You're designing it, you're coding it, and you talk about designing apps, but this was the first app. This was entirely new.
This was the first web browser.
So how do you go about persuading other people to buy into what is in your head at that point, which is a vision that you have got? I imagine it's a little bit like trying to describe to somebody a colour that is not yet in existence. How do you do that?
It is a bit like that. It's called a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is when the words for describing the new system don't exist in the old world. So, you could say, so now we talk about clicking, how it's 3 clicks away, and people know what that means. But the idea that you would click and go to anywhere in the world before was people just could not imagine it. And dealing with that lack of imagination was really hard. I'd find that I give a talk maybe to 100 people, and 3 people, you'd notice 3 people would prick their ears up, for example, and come back and find me afterwards. And they'd get it, so a few people would. But I didn't need the whole world to start using the web at once. I needed a few people.
And initially, you needed somebody to buy into the idea in the first place and to give you the freedom to work on it. And so I know you wrote to your boss, you sent your plan, and you found out much later that the notes he'd written on it were vague but exciting, which is a fabulous description. But it took a while to get the go-ahead to say, go on, have a go,
Yes.
see what you can come up with.
Well, Mike Sandel, in fact, the person I gave the memo to, he was diagnosed with cancer at that point. So he had much bigger things going on in his life. But he did tell me to just go, he said, buy a Next machine, because you've always wanted to buy one of those Next boxes. And so buy the Next computer and use it to make some app. And so why don't you do that World Wide Web thing you've been talking about?
That was a lucky break, I think, for the world. So you then turn this around in a matter of months, get it ready for launch? I mean, unbelievably fast.
Well, 3 months it took. I had to get it ready for Christmas because we had a baby. Our first baby was due on December 24th, in fact. And anyway, CERN closed to save energy. CERN closed in the middle of December. So I had to get. So yeah, I started working on September. I had to get the app basically released by the end of the year.
This is while your wife is 8-9 months pregnant.
Yep.
You're working on this.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
and then Alice was born. Then on the 1st of January, in fact, she was late. But so that year was all about Alice. It wasn't about the web.
Oh, how interesting! Because you'd launched these 2 sort of babies into the world at once, but the real baby took priority.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. When you published the first web page, a description, I think, of what the web was, which is still available actually to see online. What did that moment feel like? Did you think something big is about to happen?
There was never that sort of, this is the moment when this is everything happening, because it started off as being almost empty web page, and then I filled it in a bit. And then steadily the number of people who were looking at that web page went up by a factor of, in fact, it doubled every 4 months. So that doubled every 4 months for the first 3 years. So the number of people using that first web server, the number of hits we had per day, went up very, at absolute rock solid exponential.
Do you ever allow yourself to just sit back and think, or maybe it's your first thought when you wake up in the morning, Tim, you changed the world? Do you?
Not really.
No.
Life's too short. Yeah. Life's too short.
Do people ever come up to you on the street? I know we talked earlier about the fact that you're not instantly recognisable to many
No.
people, but people never come up and say, "I've either got to thank you or I've got a bone to pick with you."
There was just one person in an airport recently, but otherwise, in general, people don't recognise me on the street.
Right.
Don't.
And the person who came up to you at the airport,
They were thanking.
they were thanking you.
Yeah.
What's the best thing someone has ever said to you about how the web has changed things for them?
Well, I think a few people have found that they've been lives saved because of finding medical information.
It is incredible to think that so much has changed in so much time. When you were born, when I was born, of course, lives were offline, and you had to leave your house to do nearly everything.
Go to the library.
Go to the library, go to the shop. Your friends came to the front door and knocked on the front door. I mean, it was a different world, and now our lives are so very much online in so many cases. What do you think we've lost in that transition from offline to online?
I suppose the serendipity of the coffee counter, the fact that people, when you meet people, if you have to meet somebody, if you have to go around to a friend's house to see the friend, then who knows who else you'll meet there. If you have to go around to somebody's office in order to ask them a question, who knows who you'll meet along the line. So I suppose maybe we've lost. So we have to build. Maybe we should build systems which include more serendipity.
Do you prefer your online or your offline life?
Or both.
Both. What do you do offline?
Offline, I run, walk, swim in the Serpentine every now and again. So be close to nature.
You've been on the front of Time magazine. You've been named as one of the most influential people in the world. You've won very many awards. You've won the equivalent of the Nobel Prize for technology. Which is the award that means the most to you?
I think, well, the Order of Merit is because that's a sort of membership of a club of 24 people, and those real people.
Appointed by the Queen.
I was appointed by the late Queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you met her a number of occasions, I think.
Yep.
And you got along rather well.
Yes, I think yes. I helped her open her website once with. We had a little stage, and she had a TV remote to click to switch over her website from the old one to the new one.
What did she say about that?
She said next time we met, she said, "I thought we did that rather well, didn't we?"
Was that royal we, or was that
exactly? I didn't know. So I thought, she was, yes, ma'am, you did. I could have said, but I wasn't fast enough.
So Tim Berners-Lee, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And Sir Tim has written a book about his life and about the web called This Is For Everyone. Thank you very much indeed for watching Lives Less Ordinary on the BBC World Service YouTube channel. It's available on the World Wide Web. Thank you, Sir Tim. If it's your kind of thing, do subscribe, and then you won't miss an episode in future. And we'll see you next time.